The signal came from the darkness between stars, where nothing lived and nothing moved. It was weak, broken, and desperate. It traveled for 3 days through empty space before it reached the place where humanity kept its greatest secret. Lieutenant Hana Choi was tired. She had been watching her screens for 12 hours, looking at nothing but static and empty space. The Ninth Shadow Fleet had been hidden in the dark for 40 years. 40 years of silence. 40 years of waiting for something that might never come. Then her screen flickered. Hana sat up straight in her chair. Her fingers moved fast across the controls. The signal was old, using a frequency that aliens had stopped using centuries ago. It was the universal emergency call, the one that meant someone was dying and needed help. She cleaned up the signal and listened. A voice came through, alien and afraid. It spoke in the common galactic language that humans had learned long ago. "Please, anyone, the Devourers have found us. Our children, we beg the Void for mercy." The message repeated again and again. Hana felt cold. She knew about the Devourers. Everyone in the military knew about them. They were the monsters that ate entire worlds. They infected other species and turned them into weapons. No one had ever stopped them. She pressed the emergency button on her console. Admiral Park to the bridge, Priority 1. Admiral Una Park did not sleep much. She was 63 years old, but she looked older. Command had taken everything from her except her sharp mind and her iron will. She had led the Ninth Shadow Fleet for 20 years, and in that time she had never lost a battle. But she had also never fought one. The fleet existed to watch, to wait, to be ready for a war that might never happen. When she reached the bridge, Hana played the message for her. Una listened without moving her face. When it ended, she asked one question. "Where?" "The Velith Cluster, Admiral, 200 light-years away. The signal is 6 days old." Una closed her eyes. The Velith Cluster. She knew who lived there. The Alari, beautiful creatures with silver skin and 4 arms, peaceful, kind. They had wonderful music and amazing art. They also hated humans more than almost any other species in the galaxy. 300 years ago, when humanity first reached the stars, the Alari led the vote to quarantine Earth. They called humans dangerous animals from a death world. They said Earth was too violent, too harsh, too deadly. They banned humans from galactic trade. They cut Earth off from the rest of civilization. Humanity survived anyway. They built their own ships. They found their own worlds. They created their own military. And they put their deadliest fleet in the darkest corner of space, where no one would ever find it. Now the Alari were dying, and they were asking the Void for help. Captain Minyu Kang arrived on the bridge next. He was tall and quiet, with eyes that missed nothing. He commanded the battleship Silent Wrath, the most powerful ship in the fleet. He had killed more enemy vessels than any captain in human history, all in simulations. He had never fired a real weapon in combat. None of them had. "I heard the message," Minyu said. "The Alari." "Yes," Una replied. "They left us to die." "Yes." "They called us animals." "Yes." Minyu was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, "What are your orders, Admiral?" Una looked at the star map on the main screen. The Velith Cluster glowed gold and beautiful. Somewhere in that light, billions of people were hiding underground, listening to monsters scratch at their doors. Children were crying. Parents were holding them close, knowing they could not protect them. The Alari had abandoned humanity. The Galactic Council had turned their backs. For 300 years, Earth had been alone in the dark. But the signal had come. Someone was dying, someone needed help. "How many ships do we have?" Una asked. 847 combat ready, Hana answered. 2.3 million personnel. "Wake them all." The bridge went silent. Everyone stared at the Admiral. The entire fleet had never been activated, not once in 40 years. "Admiral," Minyu said carefully, "the Devourers have never been defeated. Every species that fought them was destroyed. We would be risking everything. I know. The Ilari would not do this for us. I know. Then why? Yuna turned to face her captain. Her eyes were hard but not cold. Somewhere deep inside them, there was something that looked like pain. Because the signal came from children, Captain. Because somewhere in that cluster, there are young ones who have never hurt anyone, who never voted to abandon Earth, who just want to live. Because if we do not answer, no one will. And because, she paused, because we are human. This is what we do. We answer. Minyu stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. I will prepare the silent wrath. Prepare them all. The orders went out across the fleet. In 100 hidden stations, lights came on in the darkness. Ships that had been sleeping for decades began to wake up. Engines that had never been tested in real combat started to warm. Weapons that had only been used in drills were loaded and ready. The Ninth Shadow Fleet was moving. Hana sent a message toward the Velith cluster. It was short and simple. We heard your cry. We are coming. Hold on. Far away, on Ilari Prime, the message arrived in an underground bunker where Elder Morath was trying to keep his people calm. He had been a leader for 60 years. He had been one of the voices that voted to quarantine Earth. He had called humans dangerous beasts that would destroy the galaxy if given the chance. When he read the human message, he dropped to his knees. His 4 hands covered his face. He did not know if he was crying from hope or from fear. The Deathworlders were coming. Above the bunker, the Devourer hive ships circled like hungry animals. They had already taken 3 moons. They had already infected millions. They were patient. They had all the time in the universe. They did not know that something was coming for them. Something that had grown up on a world where everything tried to kill you. Something that had learned to fight before it learned to walk. Something that the galaxy had tried to forget. The humans were awake, and they were angry. Admiral Unipark stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching her fleet come to life around her. 847 ships, the most powerful military force humanity had ever built, and they were about to do something that no species had ever done before. They were going to hunt the hunters. Set course for the Velith cluster, she ordered. Maximum speed. The fleet moved as one, sliding into hyperspace like shadows entering a darker shadow. Behind them, they left nothing but empty space and silence. Ahead of them, billions of lives hung in the balance. The wolves were running, and nothing in the galaxy would stop them. The galaxy had many eyes. Monitoring stations floated in the darkness between star systems, watching for danger, recording everything that moved. They had been built by dozens of different species over thousands of years. They watched trade routes. They watched borders. They watched the empty places where nothing was supposed to be. When the Ninth Shadow Fleet emerged from dark space, every monitoring station in 3 sectors screamed warnings at the same time. On the bridge of a trading station near the Corinth Nebula, an alien named Veth stared at his screen with all 6 of his eyes wide open. He was from a species called the Maravi, small creatures covered in blue scales. He had worked at this station for 30 years. He had never seen anything like this. That is not possible, he whispered. His partner looked over. What is it? Ships, human ships. Veth's voice was shaking. 800 of them. 800. The humans only have 50 ships. Everyone knows that. Then everyone was wrong. The screen showed a wall of metal and fire. Battleships the size of cities. Carriers that could hold thousands of smaller fighters. Destroyers with weapons that made no sense to alien eyes. The humans had been hiding in the dark, building an army that no one knew existed. And now they were moving. Commander Tiho Shin stood in the main hall of the troop ship Endless Night, looking at the soldiers under his command. The Ghost Division. 3,000 men and women trained to fight in conditions that would kill any other species. They could survive extreme heat and extreme cold. They could fight for days without sleep. They could breathe air that would poison most aliens. They were Deathworlders, children of Earth, and they were ready to prove it. "Listen up," Tiho said. His voice was calm but hard like stone. "You have all read the reports on the Devourers. They infect. They transform. They use your own people against you. Every species that has fought them has lost." He paused and looked at their faces, young and old, scared and excited, all of them watching him with complete trust. "We are not every species," he continued. "We are human. We grew up on a world where the air tries to poison you, the water tries to drown you, the animals try to eat you, and the plants try to kill you. We survived all of that. We became the top hunters on the deadliest world in the known galaxy." He smiled. It was not a kind smile. "The Devourers have never met anything like us. They are about to learn what fear feels like." The soldiers did not cheer. They did not need to. They simply nodded and checked their weapons. The Ghost Division did not waste words. They saved their energy for the fight. In the medical bay of the flagship, Dr. Suyun Lim was reading old files with growing worry on her face. She was the chief medical officer of the fleet, responsible for keeping 2 million humans healthy. She had studied alien diseases for 30 years. She knew how bodies worked, how they broke, how they healed. The Devourers were different from anything she had ever seen. They did not just kill, they changed you. They put something inside you that rewrote your entire body. Your muscles became stronger. Your mind became empty. Your only purpose was to serve the hive and spread the infection to others. There was no cure. Every species that had tried to find one had failed. Soo-young closed the file and rubbed her tired eyes. She had run the numbers. Based on everything the galaxy knew about the Devourers, the human fleet had a 23% chance of survival. She did not share this information with anyone. Some truths were too heavy to carry. Young Ensign Do Yunbei sat in the pilot-ready room of the carrier ship Dark Wind. He was 22 years old, barely finished with training. His hands were shaking a little, but he did not let anyone see. Around him, other pilots talked and laughed, trying to hide their own fear. They had trained for years in simulations. They had practiced until they could fly in their sleep. But this was different. This was real. Do-yun pulled out a small device and started recording a message. He did not know if he would survive the coming battle. He wanted his family to know how he felt. "Hey, little sister," he said quietly. "It is me. I know you are probably asleep right now, but I wanted to talk to you anyway." He paused, trying to find the right words. "We are about to do something big, something dangerous. I am scared. I will not lie to you about that, but I am also proud. The people we are going to save, they do not like humans. They think we are monsters. They left us alone for 300 years. He smiled a little. "But we are going to save them anyway. Because that is what good people do. They help, even when no one helped them. They answer calls, even from people who would not answer their calls." His voice got softer. "If I do not come back, I want you to know something. The stars are beautiful out here, really beautiful. And somewhere in all that beauty there are people who need help. That is enough reason for me. That is enough reason for all of us." He stopped the recording and put the device away. Around him, the ready room had gone quiet. Some of the other pilots had been listening. A few of them had tears in their eyes. No one said anything. They did not need to. The fleet came out of hyperspace at the edge of the Velith cluster. Admiral Una Park stood on the bridge, watching the golden nebula fill her screen. It was beautiful, one of the most beautiful places in the galaxy. And it was burning. Devourer hive ships covered the sky like a disease. There were thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands. They had already destroyed the Ilari defense fleet. Broken ships floated in the darkness, some of them still on fire. The Ilari had tried to fight. They had failed. "Admiral," Hana Choi said from her station, "I am receiving a transmission from Ilari Prime." Put it through. A face appeared on the screen. Silver skin, 4 arms, eyes like purple stars. Elder Morath. He looked like he had not slept in days. Behind him, Una could see frightened people huddled in an underground shelter. Human Admiral, Morath said. His voice was broken, exhausted. You actually came. We said we would. But why? We abandoned your people. We called you animals. We tried to keep you trapped on your dying world. Una looked at the old alien leader for a long moment. She thought about 300 years of isolation, 300 years of being alone, 300 years of building ships in the darkness, preparing for a day that might never come. Because you asked for help, she finally said. That is all the reason we need. Morath started to cry. His 4 hands covered his face and his shoulders shook with sobs. Around him, other Ilari watched the screen with disbelief. The Deathworlders had come to save them. How many people are left? Una asked. Morath struggled to speak through his tears. 4.7 billion on the planet. Another 200 million on the outer moons. We have maybe 6 days before the Devourers break through our last defenses. You will not need 6 days, Una said. You will need 3. That is how long this battle will last. She cut the transmission and turned to her crew. All ships battle stations, we are going in. The 9th Shadow Fleet moved forward into the golden light of the nebula, into the waiting swarm of the Devourers. 847 ships against tens of thousands of enemies. The math said they should lose. The galaxy said they should die. But the galaxy had forgotten what humans were capable of. The wolves had arrived, and the hunt was about to begin. The Devourers had never known fear. For millions of years, they had moved through the galaxy like a plague, eating everything in their path. They had destroyed civilizations that had existed for thousands of generations. They had turned beautiful worlds into dead rocks. They had faced armies and fleets and weapons of every kind. They had won every single time. When the human fleet appeared at the edge of the Velith cluster, the hive mind felt something new. The ships were strange. The weapons were unfamiliar. The creatures inside were from a world that the hive had marked as too dangerous to approach. A death world, Class 12, the deadliest category that existed. The hive mind decided to test these newcomers. It sent 3,000 ships forward in a wave of teeth and claws and hunger. Admiral Unipark watched them come on her tactical screen. 3,000 against 800. Any other fleet would have retreated. Any other commander would have called for help. Una smiled. All ships, she said calmly, execute crescent formation. Forward batteries fire at will. The human fleet split into 3 groups and curved around the incoming swarm like the horns of a great beast. This was not a defensive move. This was an attack. On the bridge of the Silent Wrath, Captain Minyu Kang felt his ship shake as the main guns opened fire. Human weapons were different from alien weapons. They did not use lasers or plasma beams. They used kinetic accelerators, guns that fired solid metal at speeds that made no sense. A piece of metal the size of a fist hit a Devourer ship at 50,000 kilometers per second. The ship did not explode. It simply stopped existing. One moment it was there. The next moment it was dust. The first volley from the human fleet destroyed over 100 hive ships in less than 10 seconds. The hive mind felt something it had never felt before. Surprise, then anger, then something that might have been the beginning of fear. It sent more ships, 5,000 this time, then 10,000. The humans kept killing them. Chief Engineer Jinwoo Han ran through the lower decks of the Silent Wrath, screaming orders at his crew. The ship was taking damage now. Devourer vessels were crashing into the hull, trying to bore through and inject their infection inside. Seal Bulkhead 7, flood Section 9 with fire, do not let them get inside. Jinwoo had been an engineer for 30 years. He knew his ship better than he knew his own body. The silent wrath was his child, his masterpiece, his reason for living. He would die before he let anything hurt her. A devourer drone broke through a wall and lunged at him. It was horrible to look at, a twisted thing that might have once been an Alari but was now just a weapon. Its mouth opened to reveal rows of needle teeth. Jinwoo did not run. He pulled out a tool from his belt, a heavy wrench made of solid steel, and swung it at the creature's head. The drone dropped to the floor. Jinwoo stepped over its body and kept running. Fix the hull breach on Deck 12, and someone get me more power to the forward shields. On the surface of Alari Prime, Commander Tiho Shin and the Ghost Division were falling from the sky. Drop pods screamed through the atmosphere, burning bright like falling stars. Inside each pod, 10 soldiers sat in darkness, waiting for the impact that would mark the beginning of their war. Tiho's pod hit the ground hard enough to crack stone. The door blew off, and he was running before his feet touched the earth. Behind him, 3,000 humans spread across the ruined city like a wave of controlled violence. The streets were filled with infected Alari. They had been civilians once, shopkeepers and teachers and parents. Now they were drones, empty shells controlled by the hive mind. They attacked anything that moved with mindless hunger. The Ghost Division did not hesitate. They opened fire with weapons designed for creatures much harder to kill than this. Each soldier carried enough firepower to destroy a small building. Each soldier had been trained since childhood to fight things that wanted to eat them. Earth was a death world. Humans were death worlders. This was what they were made for. Specialist Yoonji Yoon moved through the city like a ghost, her rifle picking off targets that the others could not see. She was a sniper, one of the best in the division. Her eyes could spot movement at distances that would blind most aliens. Her hands never shook. Her breathing never changed. She found a group of Alari children hiding in a collapsed building. They were small, scared, crying for parents who would never come. Around them, infected drones were closing in, drawn by the smell of fear. Yoonji did not think. She did not calculate odds or consider retreat. She simply moved. 3 shots, 3 drones fell. She jumped through a broken window and landed between the children and the remaining enemies. Her rifle ran out of ammunition. She pulled out a pistol and kept firing. When the last drone fell, she turned to the children. They stared at her with huge purple eyes shaking with terror. She must have looked strange to them. Soft pink skin instead of silver, 2 arms instead of 4, a face that was flat and strange. "It is okay," she said in their language. Her accent was terrible, but the words were clear. "You are safe now." One of the children, the smallest one, reached up and touched her hand. It pulled back immediately. "You are so warm," the child whispered. Yoonji smiled. It was a gentle smile, completely different from the cold expression she wore when she was killing. "I am from Earth. We run hot." She picked up the smallest child and put it on her back. Then she led the others out of the building, firing one-handed at any drone that came close. Behind her, the children followed in a line, holding each other's hands. High above the planet, the space battle was reaching its peak. The human fleet had pushed deep into the Devourer swarm, leaving a trail of destroyed ships behind them. But they were taking losses too. Human ships were burning. Human soldiers were dying. Admiral Unipark watched the numbers on her screen. She had lost 73 ships so far, over 100,000 people. Each number was a name. Each name was a family that would receive bad news when this was over. If this was ever over. "Admiral," Hana Choi called out, "the main Devourer fleet is pulling back." Yuna looked at the tactical display. It was true. The hive ships were retreating toward the center of the cluster, toward something that made her blood run cold. A ship was emerging from the nebula, but it was not a ship. It was a moon. A living moon covered in armor and weapons and writhing organic matter. The Queen's ship, the heart of the hive. Inside that monstrous vessel was the Queen herself, the central intelligence that controlled every devourer in existence. If she escaped, she would spawn 100 new hives. The war would never end. Yuna made her decision in less than a second. All ships, new orders. We are not letting that thing leave this cluster, whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. The crew knew what those words meant. Some battles could not be won without sacrifice. Some victories came with a price that no one wanted to pay. But they would pay it anyway. Because somewhere on the planet below, children were being saved by human soldiers. Because somewhere in the darkness of space, hope was still alive. The human fleet turned toward the Queen's ship. The final battle was about to begin. The Queen's ship was larger than anything the human fleet had ever faced. It was not built. It was grown. Millions of years of evolution had created this monster, this living fortress that carried the mind of the entire hive. Admiral Unipark studied it on her screen and felt something cold settle in her stomach. The thing was the size of a small moon. Its surface was covered with weapons that could destroy cities. Deep inside its body, protected by layers of armor and flesh, was the Queen herself. If they destroyed the Queen, the devourers would collapse. The hive mind would shatter. Every drone in the cluster would become confused and weak. They could be hunted down one by one. But reaching the Queen would be nearly impossible. The ship was too big, too strong, too well protected. Their weapons could not penetrate from the outside. "We need to get inside," Minyu Kang said. He was standing beside Yuna looking at the same screen. His face was calm, but his hands were tight fists. "I know," Yuna replied. "A strike team, small ships flying directly into the core, plant explosives, destroy it from within." "I know." Minyu turned to look at her. His eyes were steady. "The ships that go in will not come out." "I know." Silence fell on the bridge. Everyone understood what was being said. Someone had to fly into that monster and die to save everyone else. "Call for volunteers," Yuna ordered. Her voice did not shake. The call went out across the entire fleet. Within 10 minutes, every single ship had responded. Every captain, every crew, every soldier had volunteered for the suicide mission. Yuna closed her eyes. Pride and grief filled her heart in equal measure. This was humanity. This was who they were. When death called, they answered together. She chose 3 ships: the Silent Wrath under Captain Minyu Kang, the Endless Night under Vice Admiral Heian Ryu, and the Last Dawn under Captain Sunwoo Park. 12,000 people, 3 ships, 1 mission. Vice Admiral Heian Ryu was 45 years old with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had served under Yuna for 15 years. They were not just colleagues, they were friends, sisters in everything but blood. When she received her orders, she did not argue, she did not cry. She simply nodded and said, "It has been an honor, Admiral." "The honor was mine," Yuna replied. Her voice cracked slightly on the last word. Captain Minyu Kang gathered his crew in the main hall of the Silent Wrath. 4,000 people stood before him, waiting to hear what he would say. He looked at their faces, young and old, scared and brave, all of them ready to die for a cause that was bigger than themselves. "You all know what we are about to do," he said. "I will not lie to you or try to make this sound better than it is. We are going into that ship, and we are not coming back out. Our job is to fly as deep as we can and then destroy everything around us." He paused. No one moved. No one spoke. "I cannot order you to do this. Anyone who wants to leave can transfer to another ship. There is no shame in wanting to live." Not a single person moved. Minyu felt tears forming in his eyes, but he refused to let them fall. "Then let me say this. I have served with many crews over the years. I have trained with many soldiers, but I have never met braver people than the one standing in front of me right now. Whatever happens in there, I want you to know that I am proud to die beside you." Chief Engineer Jinwoo Han stepped forward from the crowd. His uniform was dirty and torn from the fighting. His face was covered in oil and blood. He looked like he had not slept in days. "Captain," he said, "the Silent Wrath is ready. I have pushed her engines beyond anything they were designed to do. She will hold together long enough to get us where we need to go." "Thank you, Jinwoo." "Do not thank me, Captain. Just make sure we hurt them bad before we go." Minyu smiled. It was a fierce smile full of teeth and determination. "That I can promise." The three ships moved away from the main fleet. Around them, the remaining human vessels formed a protective wall, fighting off the endless waves of devourer drones that tried to stop them. On the bridge of the flagship, Yuna watched her friends fly toward their deaths. She wanted to look away. She wanted to close her eyes and pretend this was not happening, but she owed them better than that. She would watch until the very end. The strike team hit the Queen's ship like a fist through paper. Human ships were built for impact. Their hulls were reinforced with materials that could survive crashing into a planet. The Devourers had never faced anything like this. Silent Wrath punched through the outer armor and kept going. Endless Night followed close behind. Last Dawn took a different path, spreading the damage across multiple weak points. Inside the Queen's ship, hell was waiting for them. Captain Minyu Kang saw things that would haunt his dreams if he had lived long enough to dream. Chambers filled with dissolved aliens, their bodies being processed into food for the hive. Nurseries where new devourers grew in pods of slime and darkness. Corridors that pulsed like living veins, pumping infection through the entire ship. And then he saw the Queen. She was massive, a mountain of flesh and hatred, connected to the ship by thousands of organic cables. Her many eyes opened and focused on the human vessel that dared to enter her domain. Her scream echoed through the entire hive mind, a sound of pure rage that made the walls shake. "Jinwoo," Minyu said calmly, "how long until the reactor overloads?" 90 seconds, Captain." "Make it 60. "Yes, Captain." The Silent Wrath drove forward, straight toward the Queen. Devourer defenders swarmed around them, trying to stop the advance. The ship's weapons fired in all directions, clearing a path through the living nightmare. 50 seconds. The Queen struck back. Organic weapons tore chunks from the Silent Wrath's hull. Fire spread through the lower decks. Crew members died at their stations, refusing to leave their posts. 40 seconds. Minyu opened a communication channel to the fleet. His voice was calm and clear, carrying across the void to every human ship and every human soldier. "This is Captain Minyu Kang of the Silent Wrath. We are in position. The reactor is about to blow. Tell the galaxy what we did here today. Tell them that Earth remembers. Tell them that Earth forgives. Tell them that Earth protects." 30 seconds. "It has been an honor serving with all of you. Now finish the job. Save those people." 20 seconds. Jinwoo Han stood beside his captain on the burning bridge. His hands were steady on the controls, guiding the ship through its final moments. Behind him, the surviving crew stood at attention, waiting for the end. 10 seconds. Minyu Kang looked at the Queen one last time. She was screaming in rage and fear, finally understanding what was about to happen. "You should have left us alone," he whispered. 0. The Silent Wrath's reactor exploded with the force of a small star. The explosion tore through the Queen's ship, ripping through chambers and corridors and defenses. The Endless Night and Last Dawn added their own destruction to the inferno. The Queen died screaming. Her mind shattered and broke apart. Across the entire cluster, every devourer drone stopped moving. The connection was gone. The hive was dead. On the flagship, Admiral Unipark watched the Queen's ship collapse into fire and ruin. 12,000 humans had given their lives to make this moment possible. She did not cry, not yet. There would be time for tears later. Right now, there was still work to do. "All ships," she ordered, her voice steady despite the grief, begin cleanup operations. Hunt down every remaining devourer. Leave nothing alive. The human fleet moved forward into the dying swarm. The battle was almost over. The impossible had been achieved. Humanity had won. 3 weeks had passed since the death of the Queen. The Velith cluster was quiet now, peaceful in a way it had not been for months. The golden nebula still glowed, and the moon still turned, and somewhere on Ilari Prime, children were playing in the sunlight again. Admiral Unipark stood on the observation deck of her flagship, looking out at the stars. She was tired, the kind of tired that sleep could not fix, the kind that settled into your bones and became a part of you. Behind her, the door opened. Lieutenant Hana Choi walked in and stood beside her commander. "The final count is in," Hana said quietly. "Tell me." Of 847 ships, 312 remain functional. Of 2.3 million personnel, 890,000 survived. Yuna did the math in her head. They had lost more than half the fleet, more than 1,400,000 people, mothers and fathers, sons and daughters, friends and lovers, all of them gone. And the Ilari. 4.1 billion survivors on the planet, 160 million on the outer moons. The death toll would have been total without our intervention. 4 billion lives saved. That was what her people had died for. That was the price they had paid. Yuna closed her eyes and let out a long breath. It was worth it. Yes, Admiral, it was. On the surface of Ilari Prime, Lieutenant Do-Yun Bei walked through the streets of the capital city. He had been promoted after the battle. His commanding officer had died covering his retreat, and someone had to take his place. The city was still damaged. Buildings were collapsed. Streets were cracked. But the Ilari were already rebuilding. Their four-armed workers moved through the ruins with purpose, clearing debris and laying new foundations. When they saw Do-Yun, they stopped what they were doing and bowed, every single one of them. It made him uncomfortable. He was not a hero, he had just done his job. But to these people, he and every human soldier were something more. They were saviors, guardians, angels from the darkness. He found the memorial at the center of the city. It was new, built in the days after the battle. A wall of black stone, polished smooth as glass. On its surface, names were carved in human letters and Ilari script, side by side. 1,400,000 names. Do-Yun found the name he was looking for. Captain Minyu Kang, the man who had led the strike team into the Queen's ship, the man who had given his life to kill the heart of the swarm. Do-Yun raised his hand to his forehead in a salute. He held it there for a long moment, not caring who saw him or what they thought. "Thank you, Captain," he whispered. "We will not forget." Behind him, a small group of Ilari children gathered. They watched the human soldier with curious eyes, no longer afraid. One of them, a tiny girl with silver skin and purple eyes, walked forward and placed a flower at the base of the memorial. "What are you doing?" Do-Yun asked her gently. "Saying thank you," she replied. "My teacher said humans saved us. She said you came from the dark to help us when no one else would." Do-Yun knelt down so he could look at her face to face. "That is true, but do you know why we came?" The girl shook her head. "Because someone called for help. That is all. When someone is hurting and they ask for help, you help them. That is what being a good person means." The girl thought about this for a moment, then she smiled. "Humans are good people." Do-Yun smiled back. "We try to be." Far away, in a great hall on a world that served as the center of galactic government, Admiral Unipark stood before the assembled representatives of 100 different species. The Galactic Council, the ones who had quarantined Earth 3 centuries ago, the ones who had called humans dangerous animals. They were all watching her now, waiting for her to speak. Yuna looked at their faces. Some showed fear, others showed shame. A few showed something that might have been respect. She did not care about any of it. She had not come here for their approval. 3 weeks ago, she began, we received a distress signal from the Velith cluster. The Alari were dying. The Devourers had found them. No one in this council answered their call. No one offered help. No one even acknowledged that the signal existed. She paused to let that sink in. Humanity answered. We sent our fleet, our soldiers, our children. We fought a war that everyone said could not be won. We lost over 1 million people, and we won. The hall was silent. Not a single representative dared to speak. I did not come here to demand payment or praise. I did not come here to threaten or conquer. I came here to ask one simple question. She looked directly at the council leader, a tall being from a species she did not recognize. When will you let us help? The council leader blinked his many eyes in confusion. Help, you want to help us. That is all we have ever wanted. 300 years ago you looked at our world and saw only death and violence. You were afraid of what we might become. I understand that fear. We are strong. We are dangerous. We were born on a world that tried to kill us every single day of our lives. She stepped forward, and no one moved to stop her. But strength is not the same as cruelty. Danger is not the same as evil. We are what we are because our world demanded it. We fight because we had to learn to fight. We survive because survival is in our blood. Her voice softened. But we also love. We also protect. We also sacrifice ourselves for strangers who have never done anything for us. That is also what Earth taught us. That is also who we are. Elder Morath rose from his seat among the Alari delegation. His 4 arms were trembling, and tears streamed down his silver face. I was one of the voices that called for Earth's quarantine, he said. I was afraid, I was wrong. The humans did not come to conquer us. They came to save us. They bled for us. They died for us. He turned to face the entire council. I call them guardians of the dark. They emerge from shadow to answer cries that no one else will hear. If this council has any wisdom at all, we will welcome them as friends and allies. We will never make the same mistake again. The hall erupted in noise. Species argued with species. Old fears clashed with new realities, but Yuna did not stay to listen. She had said what she needed to say. The rest was up to them. She walked out of the great hall and back to her ship. Hana Choi was waiting for her at the entrance. How did it go? Hana asked. I do not know. I do not care. Hana smiled. You care, Admiral. That is why you went. Yuna almost laughed. Almost. Maybe you are right. Come on, let us go home. But before they could board their shuttle, Hana's communicator beeped. She looked at it and went very still. Admiral, we are receiving a new signal. What kind of signal? Another SOS, from the edge of known space. A species we have never contacted before. They are under attack. Yuna stopped walking. She turned around and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, more people were dying. More children were crying. More parents were holding their families close and praying for a miracle. The universe was full of darkness, full of monsters, full of things that wanted to hurt and destroy and consume. But it also had humanity. Yuna smiled. It was the first real smile anyone had seen from her in years. Not a smile of happiness exactly, more a smile of purpose, of knowing exactly who she was and what she was meant to do. Send a message to the fleet, she said. Tell them to start repairs. Get everyone ready. What should I tell them, Admiral? Yuna looked at the stars one last time. Somewhere in that infinite darkness, someone was waiting for help. Someone was hoping that the void would answer their prayer. And it would, because humanity was listening. Tell them to wake the fleet, she said. Someone needs us. And somewhere in the dark spaces between stars, where nothing lived and nothing moved, human warships began to stir once more. The wolves were ready to run again.